So, as we welcome everyone, I made one comment about how many red shirts do you own?
How about that?
And then you show up today.
In a blue one.
Wearing that. You have a contract with Nike? What you doing?
I would love to have a contract. They throw out enough money. I think they could maybe throw some my way. I'd be all right with that.
Well, I mean, now they have Big Ten links.
They do. They do.
It's funny, I was talking to Paul Keels after doing a Rose Bowl. I think this is like 2010, 11, 12, whatever it was. And Oregon played Ohio State. And I said, hey, Paul, I saw him in basketball a couple weeks later at Value City Arena. I said, hey, how was the Rose Bowl? He goes, it was great. I said, what was it like calling those Oregon uniforms?
Oh.
And he says to me, Steve, he's Jim, meaning Jim Lachey.
Yeah.
He says, Jim and I kept looking and said, we couldn't read him. Couldn't see him. And it was during that period of time where the Rose Bowl had the broadcasters at the goal line, which made it tougher. See, now the last two Rose Bowls I've done, we've been at the 50. It has been a dream scenario.
Yeah.
Like, if you foul up, you're bad. It's like, so he said it was difficult. And they change uniforms all the time, so you don't know what you're going to get.
Completely. And the color of them, it's insane. It's an experiment.
It
certainly is.
Well, it's an experiment. We're all about to live in the Big Ten. Can I start with a guy I've never heard broadcast before except for the clip I watched, and that is Kevin Brown. He is the television voice of the Baltimore Orioles. The Orioles are having a tremendous season. Not only are they having a tremendous season, they're a fun team to watch. I mean, the Orioles are legitimately a fun team to watch. I give them credit because they have drafted well. They've added in a couple of guys that have helped them out. They've been patient, and the patience has paid off. I mean, the Pirates are probably looking over at what the Orioles have done and said, hey, maybe we can hit that kind of gold too. But the Orioles have been really to the line of outstanding to this point. And then the organization does this. They have suspended their broadcaster, Kevin Brown. So Kevin Brown's on TV, and in the pregame, what he was trying to point out was how much better the Orioles are this year. Okay? And this was a planned segment based on the game notes. In the game notes, they had pointed out that the Orioles had lost 15 series at Tropicana Field since 2017. The game notes pointed out that the Orioles had won 3 games at Tropicana in the last 18 they played there. But this year, they're 3-2 with an opportunity to win the season series in St. Petersburg. And that's and it was all backed up graphically. This wasn't one of those where Kevin Brown sat there and said, hey, I've got some stuff I want to say off the top of my head. And the guys in the back room like, get a graphic together. Mm-hmm. No, it was planned out ahead of time. Here's the graphic. This is what we're doing. Kevin will take us through it. Boom. And the whole point of the entire pre-game exercise was, look how much better your team is now. That was the point of it. Evidently, John Angelos, son of Peter Angelos, in the ownership group, didn't like it. And they suspended him. And like, okay, that's one of those where you pull aside the guy and just say, hey, can we talk for a second? Hey, I know what you're trying to do there. I said, but like, let's just kind of stick to what's going on in this season. I mean, that's all you got to do. Mm-hmm. That's all you have to do. They factually laid out, okay, hey, look, this has been a house of horrors here before, but you know what? Look what they're doing now. That's what they were trying to do. Get excited, Oriole fans. Look how we've turned the corner.
Yeah. Literally.
And now they do this to him. And again, I've never heard Kevin call a game. This is not the former Major League pitcher. This is the guy that was with, I think Altoona fans would know him because he did Binghamton for a while. I believe he did Binghamton. And he didn't say anything factually incorrect, but evidently John Angelos didn't like the fact that he brought up what has been obviously the past few years, which have been tough and difficult. Other Major League broadcasters, Gary Cohen, Michael Kay, Dave O'Brien, across the board, they've been calling out the Orioles, saying, what are you doing here? What are you doing? What did he do? What did he do wrong? I mean, you don't think every Oriole fan is sitting there and doesn't know from 2017 to 2021 or 2022, like, oh, this has been tough. Right? All he's trying to do was, and the entire crew, again, remember, if you're going to suspend him, what about the PR person that put the game notes? What about the person that put the graphic together? What about the producer who said, okay, here we go. Here's the rundown. This is what we're going to do. Kevin, you go out there and do it. Okay. Kevin didn't write the graphic, and he didn't do the game notes. And again, I've never heard, except for the clip. That clip is the first time I've ever heard him on the air. So and a lot of people say he's very, very good. A lot of people say he's very, very good.
Yeah, very well liked by the Orioles fans, and
awful announcing the website.
Yep.
Which you're prominently featured.
I was going to say I'm on there quite a bit. I'll tell you, I'm honored.
They did Major League Baseball rankings.
Yeah.
They asked the fan, and this is a fan vote. They always ask the fans to vote. Yeah. So if you're a Pirates fan, hey, what do you think of Kevin Brown? What do you think of Bob Walk? Whatever. And then in the end, they put it all together with grading out. Well, Kevin Brown and the Orioles broadcast team finished 10th out of 30.
And for somebody that's not been around in that position for a long time.
He's only been there since 2019.
Yeah, exactly.
He's gone through all these losses.
Yeah. And he's literally, and whether he helped design that graphic or not, it doesn't matter. He's literally, in that point, emphasizing, as you said, how much the Orioles have turned the corner. He was
trying to take the past to emphasize how good the present is
right now.
Like,
exactly.
Hey, everybody enjoy. That's what they were attempting to do.
Literally, and he said nothing wrong. That's he didn't say anything at all. I looked at the graphic. I saw it said tropical depression. I was waiting for any kind of reference to that in any way that was offensive.
No.
Nothing.
No.
And the Orioles right now. And the other problem is what Angelos has done. They've gotten themselves in trouble on a few occasions now.
Well, they fired John Miller.
Fired John Miller. I mean, that's a big part of it.
You sit there and go, John Miller?
Yeah. How you do that?
And I just listened to John Miller do a couple of games last week in the car with the Giants.
Incredible.
The Giants broadcast between Kruko, John Miller, and who's with Mike? Does
Kuiper still do it?
Kuiper. Yep. Dwayne Kuiper.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah.
Everybody will tell you that they're among the best. And you listen to a game in the radio like, oh, these guys are really good.
Yeah. Incredible.
Okay. Right.
And they fired him.
All right. And you're gone.
Yeah. It just, and they, to me, on the outside looking in, they deserve the criticism that the other teams are giving them right now. Because there's just nothing that I'm looking at. Well, I have heard so much worse on the air. That has not gotten somebody in trouble.
Look, there are ways of saying. There are ways of saying.
It's literally, and that's when I looked at that, I thought, my goodness, like what on earth are you thinking?
I'll admit, when a guy's hitting under 200 with the spikes, I'll look over and say, hey, he's got 2 home runs, 11 knocked in, and has 3 doubles, right?
Absolutely.
No. And I don't mention the batting average.
No, we all do that.
Right? And because I'm just trying to be respectful to the young man.
Yeah.
When I do something like that. And, do you sit there and say, hey, they've lost 6 in a row? Nah. Look, for example, Penn State, I'll give Penn State basketball. Let's take that.
Yeah.
Okay, so this past season, they make the NCAA tournament. And, of course, you've got the usual short-sighted commentary by some fans like, well, it's only because they were good at the end. Oh, in other words, the win at Illinois didn't count. The win at Iowa at home didn't count.
Illinois didn't count.
The win over Indiana didn't count. The 32-point win over Michigan didn't count. This is all before the end.
Mm-hmm.
All right? But there was a point where they lost 4 in a row.
Yeah.
Okay? Well, the point I kept making as we did this show, and I've done others, was that was the tough period and that everybody goes through it. Mm-hmm. Everybody. I kept going through other teams in the country that made the NCAA tournament, and UConn is a perfect example. UConn was 2-6 in the month of January. 2-6 in the month of January, won the national championship. Everybody goes through it. Everybody. And I remember Dick and I walking to the car after the Maryland game where they played so well at Maryland, which was the last game of the streak. And we both agreed, we kind of chit-chatted for a little bit, and we said, you know what? Next game will be big, but it feels like they've turned it. Mm-hmm. They've turned the corner.
Yep.
Right? And they did.
They did it by Illinois.
They did.
At home.
And they took off from that point. They won the next 3, won 9 of the last 12, and almost all of them were against teams in the NCAA tournament. Had the big run in the Big Ten tournament. Again, all 3 wins. Illinois, Northwestern, Indiana, all NCAA tournament teams on a neutral floor.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, not so neutral floor. They played Illinois in Chicago. They played Northwestern in Chicago.
Yep.
They played Indiana.
Northwestern on the road twice.
Right. And they played
getting into that.
And they played Indiana in Chicago.
In Chicago.
I mean, every game was a road game.
Every game was exactly.
And then they lost to Purdue in the 4th road game.
Yeah. On a final possession, literally. Had the chance to win.
Possession. All right. But everybody goes through it.
Absolutely.
So it's okay to give perspective of like, hey, look how your team is playing now.
Yeah.
They got through a rough patch like everybody else has. Look, because you're trying to tell everybody it's okay, everything's good, everybody just be cool. I mean, he wasn't ripping the organization, wasn't ripping the team. He didn't even mention any individual names.
No.
He just said, this has been a tough place to play. Okay.
Yeah. And he, in turn, did not insult the Rays. It wasn't basically saying, the Rays are bad either. He was emphasizing that the Rays are a consistently good team.
Yeah.
And that furthers the point of, wow, this team's turned the corner, the team being the Orioles. I have no idea what on earth they were thinking. I just have no idea. I don't know if something led up to it somewhere, but... If I'm just judging it based on that clip, if you suspended him for that clip, it's wrong.
Have there been
Have
there been others? I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, that's it. We've had enough. Well, now they look bad.
They look terrible.
Right? And
not even bad. They look terrible.
But here's the issue. What happens a lot of times when organizations look bad? What do? They dig in.
Yeah. Yep.
They dig in.
Uh-huh.
Right? And everybody... I mean, how many times over and over and again are we seeing, and not just I don't mean just sports. I mean in everything. Organization gets criticized, dig in.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how about taking a look at it and saying, you know what, we kind of botched that one.
Yeah, literally.
Right? The respect you would get from people if you say, you know what, we didn't handle that right.
Yeah.
Kevin, you're doing a great job. And just in a private meeting say, hey, Kev, guys, next time, Hey, we don't have to know everything you're doing in the pregame, but we'd prefer you do it like this. Yeah. Okay, well, if he doesn't go along with it, he doesn't go along with it because he does work for them.
Sure.
Right? He is an employee, but it's okay to pull somebody aside and say, hey, can we talk for a second?
Yeah,
and then he says, well, I was trying to show. They said, okay, I know what you're trying to show. It's just...
Yeah.
We all know it was tough the last few years. I just don't want. I'd rather just have us live in the present.
And there are teams that are that way. We don't want to talk about the past. Let's just talk about the present. That's fine. Pull them aside and tell them that.
I mean, do you think Greg Brown, to me, has done as marvelous a job as anybody I can think of that has been handed that deck of cards for years?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, he's been great.
Agreed.
I mean, not good. He's been great.
He's been phenomenal. Yeah, sure has.
And I hope Pirate fans appreciate how good he has been. You know, am I one of 30 Major League TV broadcasters out of 8 billion people in the world? Sure. Right? So there's something to be said for that, and that's great. But at the same time, you've been handed in a sport where people spend and overspend.
Yeah.
Your organization has been frugal. How about that?
Yeah.
I think it's a good word.
Yeah.
Like frugal?
I think so.
Frugal.
I think it's fair, too.
Okay.
For that.
All right. And you've had 3 great years.
Yeah.
And they were great years, including the 98 one year. But every time you turn around, they're rebuilding. Every time you turn around, they're calling up young guys. Every time you turn around, and it's just like, I mean, they had a great win last night. They beat the Braves 7-6. Before the rain delay, they knocked Spencer Strider, who's one of the top 5 to 10 starters in Major League Baseball. They knocked him out last night. Had to hold on, had to use 7 pitchers to do it, but they won 7-6. They're 51-61 right now. They are tied with the Mets record-wise. And the Mets spent all this money, and the Pirates had the same record. But Greg has done a phenomenal job with that. And just is a flat-out good guy, too. Represents the club well, the whole deal. And Kevin Brown, just on the clip, and again, I've never heard Kevin call a game. I've never heard Kevin Brown announce a game.
No, I never have either.
Right. So I couldn't tell you in a million years. Right. But I watched the clip before the show. I was like, really?
Yeah. Like I said, if that's all they judged him on, they were wrong. I'm not going to say that's a fact, but it's pretty darn close to it. It's just.
Now, is it okay for the organization to talk to him afterward and say, Kev, guys.
They pay him.
And the TV guys. Hey, guys, moving forward. Right? You know, I know we've had some tough times. Right? Let's just concentrate on the present and talk about the future.
Yeah.
Right? That's all you have to do.
Yeah, instead of suspending him.
Right?
Which
now,
is just embarrassing.
Now, you've done 2 things. Okay? Number 1, you look bad. Yeah. And number 2, everybody's looking at the clip going, God, the Orioles were bad.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
You've actually called attention to it.
Yeah. And
brilliant. Who sat down in the conference room and thought that was a good idea?
Yeah.
Now everybody's looked at the clip and go, God.
And you look at organizations, our top priority is to do what is for the best of the fans. Well, guess what? That wasn't for the best of the fans.
No.
You ticked the fans off, and for the fans have a good reason to be ticked off. That's just it.
You look bad,
terrible.
And you called attention to it.
When you have other broadcasters on their broadcast talking about it, you called attention to it. There's no doubt about that.
Well, other broadcasters...
Not a shadow of a doubt.
Okay, I don't know who they're playing Tampa Bay. You don't think the Rays announcers, Dwayne Statz and those guys sat there and went... Because it's in the game notes. It was
in the game notes.
The game notes.
Yeah. And the other part of it, even when you look and you talk about Greg Brown and Bob Walk have at times been critical, and they get the respect of everybody involved with the Pirates for being critical at times. Sure. It's part of the game. It's okay to be critical to your team in a fair and impartial way.
There's a way to say
exactly. In a fair and impartial way.
And to be honest with you, Kevin Brown was just matter-of-factly saying, hey, look, it's been a tough few years, but look at us now.
Exactly. That's the worst part of all of this. He pretty much was putting them on a platter and saying, hey, here's where they are now. Let's show why they're here now. Look at how much this team has turned the corner. He was praising them.
It's like unreal.
It's bad, and it's a bad look for organization that has ownership that has a reputation that is not spectacular to begin with. For one of the reasons you said, you fired John Miller, and they've done a lot of other things that have been questionable, and now this, you basically have, I don't want to say ruined, but you have put a little bit of a stain on what has been an outstanding season. And you've alienated a fan base that just packed Camden Yards on Saturday.
Yeah.
And then that's, I don't get it. I truly don't get it.
I'm baffled by it. In other
completely.
Words,
Same here.
He did not. Red Barber, the legendary Red Barber, who did the Dodgers for years and would be considered, along with Connie Desmond, two of the mentors for Vin Scully. Okay. Eventually, Red Barber made his way to the Yankees. And in 1965, the Yankees had been to the World Series in 64, lost to the Cardinals in 7 games. Well, in 65, the Yankees, older, right? So now finally after the great run, right, they aren't as good.
Right.
They're playing, I think, the Washington Senators, I believe. It's like the last weekend of the season. And there's only 1,400 people at the game. In Yankee Stadium, 1,400 people. I think that was the listed attendance for it. So Red Barber said, hey, you got to show this. So the TV cameras show it, and he made a couple of comments about it. They fired him. Okay. And all he was doing was saying, what a fact, there weren't a lot of people there. I mean, look, I tell everybody all the time, 1967 changed everything for the Red Sox, right? Before it's 1967, you could get a ticket anytime you wanted to any game you wanted, sit in any seat you wanted. Mm-hmm. There were only 10,000 people there when Ted Williams hit a home run in his last at-bat. There were 10,000 people there. That was it. When Ted Williams hit the home run in his last at-bat. Right? I went there a whole bunch of times when I was a kid. After 67, it was kind of like, okay, you could still go to almost any game you wanted to. Almost. Right? But there were more people at the park. Because before that, we could sit in, hey, it's great. We go once a year, 63, 64, 65, 6, whatever. Like, we go once a year, go with my father, my grandfather, it's like, great. Right? Then all of a sudden, they started winning, and voila, the greatest marketing tool in the history of sports kicked in. Mm-hmm. He started winning, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, we have people showing up. So, look, it's not... Fans are smart.
Oh, yeah. There's no doubt.
Right? Now, sometimes you can be smart and overly critical.
Yeah.
Okay.
Overly critical and out of line at times. Right. Yeah,
sure.
I agree.
I mean, you can be smart and overly critical. But if they aren't playing well, just go, hey, look, it's been a tough night so far. Well, okay. That's a way of saying they're not playing.
They're not playing well. Right? And it's not being overly critical.
Right. Yeah, they're having a tough night so far. It's been a tough shooting night to this point. And you say, like, 10 for 30. Like, well, no offense.
Yeah.
But that's exactly what you're shooting right now.
Literally.
It's all right.
When you're stating facts, it's not, it's literally not something that should be offensive in any way.
Yeah.
And it literally, when you throw your opinion in there, then you cross the line at times. But there's no question. It's okay to be critical at times. You earn not only respect, you earn respect of the fans. Yes, you earn respect of the players a lot of times when you're critical.
Depends.
It depends. I know. There's
Johnny Miller was not the most popular with professional golfers.
No. Barry Bonds was never popular when you said a word about him. But to me, Eddie Murray, same thing. But there's a lot of times when, hey, look, you say you struggled again. You don't blatantly say, oh, you played terrible. But, if they struggle, they struggle. It happens. You have to word it.
I always tell my broadcasting class, I said, stay away from histrionic phrases such as "he is absolutely horrible."
Yeah, no.
All right, I said no. They're ways of saying that somebody is struggling, okay, not playing well. And he says, "Hey, you can see how frustrated they are because they know they're better than that."
Yeah,
things like that. I said, but he's absolutely terrible. That was, or like a call on the field. Let's take just instead of players or performance, let's take a call on the field. That was an absolutely terrible call. That was disgusting. No, you can't do that.
No.
There are ways of saying it without going way over the top.
Way over the top, yeah.
Right? And look, not every game is a kumbaya game. All right? I mean, I've done games where, I did a game in let's say it was 85. 82, 83. It was 1984. Yeah. No, it was 85. Where Penn State went down, played Navy. They had beaten David Robinson in Navy. Did I do this on one of the Steve stories?
Yep.
Yeah. And they'd won at 66-63 over Navy. Beat David Robinson. Robinson at 24 played well. Was in Rec Hall. Then the next year they went down. They lost 103-50. Okay, I've done those games. Okay?
Yeah.
I mean, I did a Penn State football game where they played Iowa and lost 6-4. Right? Now, I've taught, but they're all been teaching points for my class. So let's take Penn State beat Illinois 38-33. They beat Wisconsin in the Big Ten tournament 36-33 in 2011. So let's take the 36-33 game. This is what I tell my class. I said, what do you say in something like that? I said, well, it's a 6-4 game. I said, it's 6-2. Any possession you get, a touchdown puts you in front. So you're in the fourth quarter now. I said, it doesn't matter whether it's 36-32 or 6-2. I said, it doesn't matter. It's a 4-point game.
Mm-hmm.
And then Kirk Ferentz late decides to take a safety. Well, now a field goal can win it. I said, winning and losing comes into play. I said, it doesn't matter whether it's 6-4 or 46-44. I said, what's the difference?
Right.
In terms of the margin. I said, same thing with the 36-33 game that Penn State won in the Big Ten tournament in Indianapolis. Right? There's a certain point with 5 to 6 minutes to go where winning and losing comes into play. So it's more about Penn State's up 3, Penn State's up 5. Penn State never relinquished the lead. They led the entire game. Right? And they win the game 36-33. I said, but winning and losing comes into play with 5 to 8 minutes to go in the game. I said, it doesn't matter if it's 96-93 or 36-33. I said, now it's about winning and losing. I said, that's how you have to think. Instead of, getting critical of shots or making fun of the score or whatever. Okay? I said, remember the 38-33 game Penn State won in Illinois, and we get to the post-game show, and Dick made the comment, and when does the second half start? Well, Penn State won, so everybody's in a good mood. It's funny.
Yeah.
It's funny. But again, 5 to 8 minutes to go in the game, winning and losing comes into play, and it's about margin. It doesn't matter what the score is at that point in terms of how many points have been scored so far. 6-4. It doesn't matter at that point that it's 6-4 or 36-34. A field goal can win the game. So that's what you're concentrating on as you're doing it. Now, in the postmortem part, you're like, okay, well, that was different.
Sure.
Okay. And you go from that. So look, we've all been through those spots. I mean, my goodness, I'm trying to think. Bruce's first year into the second year, Penn State lost, right? And this tells you what a great job because he didn't have a lot to work with, but they lost 18 straight games at one point. Well, what am I supposed to,
Yeah.
It's you don't sit there. Now, I'll say this. You don't sit there and say, hey, they've lost 6 in a row.
No.
I mean, I didn't do that. I think the fans know they lost 6 in a row. I mean, even though it's a fact, but you're like, okay, hey, what's next? Can they turn it around? Things like that. Because there's ways of doing things. And I don't think he did anything wrong. I think the only part of that was like, ew, was the 15-1 series thing going back to 17. I was like going, that looks really bad.
Yeah.
But again,
but it's a team on the field.
But it's on
him.
But it's on the graphic.
Yeah, exactly.
So you're like, okay. And he didn't put together the graphic, and the PR department's the one that put together the stats. I mean, do you think the MASN crew put that together? Got me a break. No way they put that together.
Not a chance.
Right? They took it from the game notes.
Yep. Agreed.
All right.
Yeah.
And now, now we're at a point too where people are listening to what people have to say, right? And you've got, guys have been fired, lost jobs because they either turned the wrong phrase, said the wrong thing, whatever. All right. Then this. Okay. You want to know how many times in the 41 seasons, about to be 42, that somebody at Penn State has said something to me about something? 0. Right? And not every game has been a work of art. Not every broadcast has been a work of art. I've been fortunate that I feel like there's been a level of trust. How about that?
Mm-hmm.
And it makes a big difference when you're working for people who give you that level of trust. And if they wanted to say something to me, they could.
They could, sure.
Right? I'd be like, hey, that's okay, because I'll listen. You're working for the organization. Yeah. But they're having a terrific season. Now you get people look at them like, really?
This, I wouldn't say this totally overshadows it, but people look at it now and say, oh, great.
Yeah.
Spoil a great weekend. And literally, and that's, this, it was great to see that ballpark back to what it was in 1993, 94, 95,
no doubt.
96, and now
which is a great ballpark, by the way.
Yeah, it really, I think you can make the argument paved the way.
Oh, no question. Oh, yeah, no.
There's no question.
The new old look.
Yeah, then the scenery. You have the warehouse out in right field. Yeah,
it's great.
There's no doubt. You have the big soda bottle outside the stadium. I think absolutely was.
Oh, when Penn State played Maryland.
Yep.
We stayed in the Marriott that was overlooking the ballpark. Man.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, this is later in the year, so the Orioles are done for the year. But it's like, God, gorgeous. Yeah, and I've gone to games there. So
it's
terrific.
Night Ripken ended his streak. Yep.
Okay. So, conference realignment is the hot topic for everybody. It seems everybody's talking about it. So let's get into a couple of things quickly about it. We're going to have, I am going to talk to Tony Knopp next week. I would talk to Tony Knopp this week. Actually, I did talk to Tony Knopp this week, but he's in Maui with his family. They're like, I said, Tony, why don't we talk next week? Why don't you just enjoy your family? This is not exactly the single most urgent thing on the planet. I said, have a good time in Maui. So let's start with the Mountain West Conference and the Pac-4, previously known as the Pac-12, then known as the Pac-10, then known as the Pac-9, and now is the Pac-4.
That pack that once used to dominate the Big Ten and the Rose Bowl for many, many years.
Oh, in the 70s?
Yeah.
Oh, in the 70s they were. That was mean, that was one of the reasons, like, you look at that 1973 documentary where Ohio State went. The Big Ten was desperate to win the Rose Bowl. That's why they sent Ohio State, even though they'd gone the previous year, because they were worried that Dennis Franklin had a broken collarbone, couldn't play, and they'd lose the Rose Bowl again. But that aside, there are stories circulating the ACC is vetting Stanford and Cal. Okay. It's just, hey, it's, again, what do these four schools have? Right? They don't have the messiness of the grant of rights. They don't have the messiness of an exit fee, anything like that. Whatever move they make would be seamless. Now let's discuss the possibility of a merger between the Mountain West and those four remaining schools. The merger, in a technical sense, if the Pac-12 were to absorb Mountain West schools in a merger, the Mountain West schools would have to waive their, quote, exit fee of $32 million. Now, I'd like to explain how the Craig Thompson put the exit fees in 2019. Okay? This is how it works, the way I understand it in the Mountain West. That if you give notice, say, for example, I'm San Diego State, and I've decided that I'm going to go to the Big 12 conference, but I'm not going to go for 2 years. The exit fee is $17 million. But if I'm San Diego State and I want to go to the Big 12 and I want to go next year because it's only 10 and a half months out, it's $32 million. See, that's how it works. It's the time frame, right? 1 year, 2 years. Hey, we're going to go in 5 years. We're going to go in 2 years. It's $17 million. If it's 1 year out, it's 32. Right? That's why that July 1 thing was so important for what they were trying to do and they're going to stay in the Mountain West. But if the Mountain West were to merge with the Pac-12, with the Mountain West technically absorbing Oregon State, Washington State, Stanford, and Cal, then all that stuff goes away. And you would have a 16-team league for football and a 15-school league for basketball, because Hawaii is football, but I believe they're in the Big West for basketball.
I think so. Yeah,
something like that. But that's what you'd have. So now you would have together Boise State, New Mexico, Colorado State, San Diego State, UNLV, Fresno State, Oregon State, Washington State, Cal, Stanford, and still have that West Coast feel to it. And the question would be, would you change the name? And I think they probably would. And the idea of this would be, by doing that, you would preserve the automatic bid at the table for the college football playoff. I think that would be the idea of it. Whether it's realistic or not, I don't know. I don't know what the language of the college football playoff happens to be when it comes to this situation. Because when it was put together, nobody envisioned having a Pac-4.
Pac-4.
Yeah. So that is a possibility of a merger between the Mountain West and these four remaining schools to then bring it to a 16-school conference league. Apple can still be a part of what's going on. Apple, by the way, when it comes to negotiating, no shrinking violets themselves. And this is what I was talking about with Tony yesterday. He said unbelievable with, he said the way, he says Apple has its way of doing things. And he says, the bottom line is to Tony, He told me straight out, I said, Apple is not standing pat. Okay. See what that means. But they're not standing pat. Maybe they go out, maybe they decide to carry the Big Ten, an extra Big Ten package. I don't know. With, 10:30 time slot. We'll see. I don't know. I think Tony Petitti has to be part of what he's doing. I think you've got to be able to at least cover Oregon and Washington without taking away from anybody else in the conference. And you can do that. You have options now.
Yeah.
So that would be the Mountain West combined with them. Now let's get to the ACC part. For some reason, there is a story going around that ESPN is the one that owns the grant of rights. It was signed over by the ACC to them. No. The ACC owns its rights. Now, do they have a management agreement with ESPN for the ACC network? Yes. But the conference owns the grant of rights, and ESPN pays the ACC money for the rights to carry the games, just like with anybody else. I mean, Fox owns the rights to carrying Big Ten games, but not every Big Ten game, right? And not every ACC game is going to be on ESPN. If that were the case, ESPN would have then taken the. I mean, this is where common sense has to come in. This is the part the common sense part. I always get concerned about when okay, if ESPN is the one that had the rights, like the grant of rights and not the conference, then how in the heck did the ACC negotiate a new deal with the CW? If ESPN's the one that had the rights. Because the ACC owns its rights, and the rights that were signed over by the schools. So now they have a contract with ESPN. They also have the ACC network, which ESPN has done a great job of running for them. They've done a very good job with it. And now they've got this package with the CW. Right? Who owns the rights? The ACC owns the rights. Okay? If that were the case, ESPN would have announced, hey, or the ACC would have, hey, thanks ESPN for letting us have the CW to do some of our games. No. Okay? The conference has the rights. So if Florida State breaks away and they had the heck with all this, and they play a home game, the ACC is going to get the money. Okay? That's what the grant of rights means. Now, Florida State plays on the road, no. But if they play a home game and they're breaking the grant of rights and, court cases aren't settled and the whole thing, when it comes time for the check, we carry Florida State and Oklahoma. Here you go. ACC gets the check. Right? That's how it works. Again, I keep going back to, if the grant of rights were so easy, why did Texas and Oklahoma have to pay $50 million apiece to get out of the last year of the Big 12 contract?
Let alone
and by the way,
10 years.
It was done amicably.
Yeah.
Okay? Adults in the room just sat down. They worked it all out. You didn't hear a lot of yelling and screaming. They just worked it out. Okay. Well, guess who copied the Big 12 document? Almost verbatim. The ACC did. All right? And then they negotiated a deal with ESPN. Then ESPN, hey, the reason they have it out to 2036 is because of the ACC network. All right? Well, the ESPN's running that for them, just like they run the SEC network. Do you think the SEC doesn't have its own rights? It's like, come on. It's like, I see that. People will come up to me Oh, good. Thursday, we're going to have the Washington play-by-play guy on.
Nice.
Tony Casatricone.
Nice.
He replaced Bobby Rondo.
Yeah.
Last time I talked to Bob got a hold of me 6 months ago about something. And Bob's doing well. He and his wife both doing well. But Bob retired. But yeah, we're going to have Tony Castricone on. Okay? And we'll do that on Thursday.
Nice.
Mucho cool, huh?
Yeah.
And we're trying to get Oregon's play-by-play guy on, too.
Nice.
All right. Okay. But for some reason, ESPN actually owns the right. No, they don't. They pay the conference for the right to carry the games.
Yeah.
Okay? Then they have the management agreement for the ACC network. If ESPN is the one that owned the rights to all these games.
Yeah, I'm not going to let it any kind of competing network.
Then they would have been the ones to announce that the CW was now picking up some ACC games. The conference owns the rights. Okay? 2 + 2 = 4. Okay? It's like, over here, common sense corner. I mean, this has become such a spiral that people are putting out stuff that make no sense.
Mm-hmm.
I have an inside source. It's in a vault.
Yeah.
Okay? And the vault is in Greensboro. It's not in Charlotte.
No.
Okay? Greensboro is where the ACC is. That's where their office happens to be. You sit there and go, what am I? Okay. I have inside sources. You do, really?
Yeah.
Oh, over here in the back, I have doubts. I don't think you have any sources. Right? Then you got people like Heather Dinich, Pete Thamel, Adam Rittenberg.
Absolutely.
You know, you start going through the long list of people. You're like going, hey, Stuart Mandel, Dennis Dodd, Brett McMurphy, all these people we've had on the show, right? Well, they are connected. Mm-hmm. Oh, they don't know what they're talking about. Over here in the back, maybe. They sort of like, it's amazing the ability to get information when you talk to people.
Yeah. And the ironic part of all, you mentioned, Heather, before she was one of the premier college football analysts for ESPN as she is, what was her primary conference? She covered the ACC.
I know.
So it's like, look, they're going to know this stuff long before those inside sources are going to know this.
This blogger says, really? It's like, I know everybody's aching. Here's the issue. People are aching for information.
Not only people are aching for information, the outsider, the person trying to give that information is aching to be the first one to do it and is often wrong doing it.
I mean, people are aching for information. Yeah. They're aching for it. So somebody puts out something, they're like, hey, look, right, trying to get hints as to what's going on. I got that. I got it. All right? But it doesn't mean it's right. Okay? I mean, that's one thing that, and it's an old standard, but it's not used anymore. It used to be, unless you really got it from the horse's mouth on something, right? When you're trying to do a story, you needed to have two sources. You're like, okay. In fact, take a moment, watch All the President's Men. Right? Robert Redford, Dustin Hoffman, Woodward Bernstein. All right? Trying to cover the web of Watergate. And every single time they bring it in, and they're, Ben Bradley and the entire crew, they're like, look, we need a second source. Well, that's the way it's supposed to be done. Instead of, I heard from a booster. And then you put it out there like it's news. I'm like, no. Okay, that's not how it's supposed to be done. When you put something out, you've got to have something that is, right, confirmed, verifiable, unless it's straight from the horse's mouth. I mean, I'll give you an example of that. Let's go way, way back. Way back. James is in his first year. And it was the day Miles Diefenbach got hurt at spring practice. And And James walks up to Jack and me, and he tells us exactly what the injury was. Now, did we go on the air and do anything with it? No, we said it was out, but we knew exactly what it was because we got it from the guy that knows. Okay, I don't need to multi-source it. Oh, yeah, you know what? We'll go talk to the doctor. It's like, no, it's okay. I think the head coach was good enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he walked over and told us in practice. Okay, so we knew exactly what was going on. But at that point, it's up to Miles and everybody else to say whether, what his deal is, whatever. That's 10 years ago. But other things like this, you need to multi-source something because nobody's talking.
No.
Right? And when somebody puts out something on Twitter, my sources tell me, first of all, you don't have sources. It's probably a source. Mm-hmm. Right? You got to have like Pete Thamel. You think Pete Thamel puts stuff out there and and I've talked to Pete. I mean, because Pete's been here, and Pete's a really good guy.
Yeah, really good guy. And
Adam Rittenberg, really
sensational.
Great guy.
Adam's an amazing guy.
But they go through and they don't put something out unless they've got all the ducks in a row. And I tell my class all the time, I'd rather you be second and right than first and wrong. Mm-hmm. And I'm concerned today about how things are going, where there's a lot of just, hey, we're going to throw darts out there. It goes back to what Rob Parker is teaching a class at USC. And there's a part of his class where he talks about hot takes. And he tells his class, it doesn't matter if you're wrong. Well, it does matter if you're wrong.
Matters a lot if you're wrong. Yeah.
It does matter if you're wrong.
Matters a lot if you're wrong.
All right. And
you break a wrong story and it's a big one. You're
right.
Yeah, your career is taking a back step in a big way.
And even on opinion,
matters a lot.
But even on opinion, how many times have you heard me say? Because you and I have worked together so often to the point where you're actually only 22 years old. You look like you're 50 now because after work. No, I'm just kidding.
If I was 22, I'd be doing a backflip right now.
Right. But you and I have worked together a lot.
Yeah.
How often have you heard me say, hey, look, I didn't get that one right?
Yeah.
I mean, how often have you heard me say that?
Sure.
You know what? I thought it was going to go this. I didn't get it right. Because it's okay to say you didn't get it right. It happens. Because that way, when you're telling everybody and you don't have to do that, that tells you everybody you were getting it right.
Yeah.
That's, and there's no need for ESPN to negotiate the contract. They already got a contract. They already have it. They're like, look at it. What, you want more money? I'm not going to give you more money. The heck, I need my money for the NBA deal. All right. Back tomorrow. Tomorrow, Neil Coulong on the Steelers. John Sauber on Penn State football.
Nice.
That's tomorrow's show. And then we'll go to Seattle.
All right.
And on Thursday, Tony Castricone is going to join us on the show, the play-by-play voice of Husky football on Thursday.
Nice.
Not bad.
All
right.